Hey friends, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel, A Card Day's Work. Today we're making a super clean and simple card using a few of the new supplies from Simon Hurley's recent release. This new release is full of Easter and spring goodies, so I was so excited to use these in some new ways today. I started off by doing a little ink blending. I chose Overzealous for my first color and then followed that up with some Clear Skies. These colors layer so well and blend beautifully, so you can really get creative and customize your colors by mixing them together. I paired these inks with the new Flower Power stencil. I made sure to soften my ink blending as I got closer to the edges of the panel so that it looked like the design faded out towards the outside. I didn't want the whole panel to be covered with ink blending, and this is a great way to soften up an ink blended background so the lines aren't so crisp. Once my ink blending was done, I snagged the Egg Hunt background stamp and pulled off the middle piece. Simon's unique design for these pull-apart background stamps is really a game changer. There are so many cool ways to use these when you're not limited to an entire background. I pulled the foam piece out of my MISTI so that the rubber background stamp would fit inside nicely, and then I positioned the eggs over my background. I stamped these in black ink from Maker Forte. It took me a few tries to get a good impression here, but it was mostly on the very edges of the card panel, so it may have had something to do with the thickness of the paper, but that's the beauty of the MISTI though. You're able to keep stamping and reapplying your ink in the exact same position until your results are perfect. No double stamped or blurry images here. Now, I love the look of the black ink paired with the brighter green and blue inks we chose earlier, but if these colors don't do it for you, you can absolutely change things up by selecting the colors you prefer. Simon has a great collection of dye ink colors to choose from, so you should be able to find something that is exactly what you're looking for. Once my stamping was done, I traced along the outside of the stamp on an extra piece of white cardstock. I did this lightly in pencil and then took a pair of sharp scissors and cut just along the inside of the line I drew. This gave me a similar curve to the eggs I'd already stamped. When I was done with this part, it almost looked like the eggs were poking out of a little carton. So cute! If you're having trouble with fussy cutting, try moving the paper as you go around the curves rather than moving your hand and scissors. I find that this gives me a much smoother curve and I'm much less frustrated with my end results. Give it a try and let me know what you think. Now that our panel is cut, it's time to ink up our sentiment. I used my original MISTI again for this since I already had it out, but usually if I'm just doing a sentiment, I definitely reach for my mini MISTI more often. The size of the mini is so perfect for adding sentiments to A2 sized card fronts. I used the Maker Forte Eclipse black ink here again as well. I decided to add some foam tape to the back of my trimmed card panel, but if you're going to recreate this card, don't add the foam tape yet. As usual, I got ahead of myself and I shouldn't have done this step until a little bit later. I should have trimmed my panel first before adding the foam tape. When I did go to trim the panel, it was super hard to get a crisp cut with my paper trimmer because the foam tape was already added. Don't be like me. I did manage to get my panel trimmed down after it was added, but I had to go back and do some trimming with my scissors to make sure it looked a little more clean and professional. I had some fuzzy ends poking out here and there, and I'm a pretty big perfectionist, so that wasn't going to cut it for me. See what I did there? I got it cleaned up in the end though, so hooray! When all was said and done, my card front was trimmed down to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. This fits nicely on an A2 size card base. I'm using Simon Hurley's Stark White cardstock for my card today, and this is a nice and sturdy 110-pound cardstock. It's amazing for card bases, but it's also great for layering and some light water techniques as well. I find myself reaching for it quite often. I used the Maker Forte To The Point bone folder to get a nice sharp crease in my card base, and then I grabbed my ATG or advanced tape glider to attach my card front to my card base. Here we have another classic Jess moment. If you're recreating this card, you're going to want to do this step before you add your foam to the card panel, which seems like common sense, but I never seem to think of these things until after the fact. I think it's mostly because I'm a fly by the seat of my pants crafter and I don't plan my cards out at all. I start with some vague idea of a theme or a color combination, and after each step, I make a decision about what I want to do next. Unfortunately, this sometimes leaves me in a bit of a crafty pickle, and I have to get creative to make the card turn out how I want in the end. In this case, I grabbed a tiny flower image from Hoppy Easter and tried my hardest not to get any black ink on the pretty sentiment area of the card. Luckily, I managed to do it, but phew, was it stressful. Once the stamping was done, I grabbed a bottle of liquid pearls and added a few little pops of color to my card. These dry with dimension, so they're a great way to add a little something extra to your card. And if you thought I was done with Jess moments for this card, I hope you weren't holding your breath, because here's another. I grabbed an Emboss It pen from Ranger, truly because it's just what I had readily available, and I didn't feel like searching for something else, but it really did the job perfectly. I used the pen to fill in the open areas of each flower I'd stamped previously, but the kicker? I didn't wait for the liquid pearls to dry before I did my coloring. Why do I do this to myself? The world may never know. Once my adventurous coloring was completed, I set the card aside to dry, and that finished everything off. I love the clean and simple look of this card, and I especially love the bright colors paired with the crisp black ink. It speaks to my creative soul. Is there something that gives you joy every time you do it in your crafts? Share it with me in the comments. I would love to know what makes you guys happy when you're crafting. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new video when it's posted. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in another one really soon.